And in a happy way? Yeah, no. Okay. And, welcome, thank you very much, all of you. We had Yosune and a little insight in the happy life. Had Sigrid and Carl and Vibo and Rodrigo and emergency situations and it's within 1 kilometer. If we had downstairs, this code. We tried to move the exhibition from the 4th floor to the 8th floor. We are not, and we are not allowed to steal the work. So you get lost in your mind. Thank you very much. An insight, an outlook, a perspective, how to do one o'clock for the program for today. Coffee break, Natalia, and David, and afterwards we finish with and we're going. Please make a smart pages of your press. A little bit of text. It could be this part. You feel very easy going and latest one. Not you. One single page. And dynamic publication, it's just a souvenir in the night bus. And to start today with
experience that we because Ceci was also handling risk and communicating risk is something that I consider a big challenge. And we start working with a community called, and after the earthquake, we organized and in my case, I'm an architect. So we start working with these 3 different work in a place called such characteristics of this area is periphery of Mexico City. Is something strange here in Mexico City because we're it's also going after but we have the human settlements there. So cracks, subsidence, and also floods. These are the main risks that are in the one of the problems. Almost all the houses are mainly self-construction. The maps and logical develop a communication and saying them you are under risk, and it's important to give them some options. And with Ceci, she developed, and we start working in, and we was 6 months, and we with the soil. Because we combine these social people in a very damage in their houses. We decide to, but I think it's only that they have, and yeah, that's it. I mean, I don't have
tools that you used in order to explain people what is
very important because yes, yeah, translate.
Talk about people because it's not in the house to let you in.
With the people, going to talk about what happened. What happened is that the government arrived, giving them some kind of help, talk with them. It's very important that somehow.
So I'm trying to be fast. The place where things happened. So what I'm doing right now, with a big agency, well, this morning we had this, and I always have this, because even if I clean the toilets and getting on his no police, so it's a feeling of life. So this was for, there was no industry of wars, GDR, some relevant questions. So there's some interesting thing. It's not about Berlin, it's more about themes, it's more about topics, it's about relevant questions. So talking to other cities, so don't even visit a university. It's interesting even when you see the wide range. To David Jenkins in 1988, while city we putting this. So it seems banal, but like in a good story, they're not in the book. As I saw in the different maps here, so we have these different layers of city. The city scan Berlin built their city in the future. So what does that mean in practical terms? So they will create urban experience that will have benefit for all experience oriented and safer. Berlin is a bicycle city, so everybody who's coming to Berlin loves to bicycle. And there's a project, cities, and I don't know if you have these in Mexico, but these abandoned places, one point, no, where they put to make bike to track like this. And they, in different workshops, asked the community what people said, okay, well, there's a river, let's swim in this river. Okay, what must happen if this, when we're talking about data, now they have a kind of, they're collecting data, and they can say that the water was good 7 days ago. So this is a kind of problem for everybody, so that you can dig a little bit. So they started with these, need a lot of money, and work with sensors that they have a real-time information if the water is good or the water is not good. Because it's not about the water, it's about when it's raining and the water's coming back into the river. No, when there's a factory around there, lots of dirt and stuff and whatever, and we don't know, let's go swimming. And the other idea, okay, let's try to do this. So it takes a couple of years. What people swimming and get prizes where they, of course this is an international network, there's some projects around the globe, so out of this were people in other cities trying to make the river livable. So what we're going to teach themselves proactively, communicate so that they navigation, so that people know where are we right now. Because if you don't do this, this is real life. So because we are all designers sitting wherever, and then people just find the short ones of tomorrow. I think we have to work on that. It's even the status symbols of today. In time, I was in time. Questions?
Interested on your view. I spent a lot of time in Berlin and project in a party, but I couldn't if our heck for to Berlin to relax. How do you see?
Can say them that.
How do you see?
Can say them that. This Europe thing. When you order food in Germany, of course. But when I'm going to people who have much time. People who have much time. Communicate, I think they are there. But of course, fall off the wall. I very good, well-made project. Reflect on themselves. So I think in
other sectors like
it's there. Have to work on set.
Who is going to
Maybe, or I'm thinking of. Thank you.
Okay.
If you,
Yeah.
do you want to? Found here by Jose Manuel, but they were also responsible for taking station. And so for those of you who are going to visit, the work that you'll see on street was ultimately delivered. Not economy. Low-income workers who live a long way from the places of nighttime activity. Transport and mobility is a real challenge. The scale of Mexico with 20 informal dwellings. And this project was first of all conceived, delivered since 2013, particularly well used, to ultimately deliver a pilot to test those concepts from the implementation. There were a number of other partners in this project. The project was funded by the BID, which is the Inter-American, was Secretary, various others. So I should probably just say who STEER is. STEER used to be called Planning Consultancy, based, headquartered in London, from Canada through to Santiago de Chile, and have, I think, 5 offices in Europe. Transport practice, we understand, running right through the middle of Mexico City. A plan for all 11 route corners along the interview, data and practice review of what other analysis, practice review of what other cities. This is the map that was available. So the network have an established methodology for environmental analysis called PERS. You score improvements to that quality. But this is the first comprehensive application of PERS. And to do this, we had to fine-tune the analysis such that it was focused on the requirements of this project. A variation, considerations. How do you get onto the to each individual to understand what would encourage them to use a new, when you get to the edge of Mexico City, local and the lab part interchange, particularly transfer stop to determine. We looked at your level to determine how you might be about 4 or 5. Got the buses were actually okay. It's not just the knowledge of what's really going on. Types of jobs, physically impaired, and from really useful data, and the Metro boasts very high quality, very busy in the daytime, but the infrastructure from there, physical elements, communications, and to both of maps. We then took it out to La Bombilla, a stop in the south transport network. Problems with naming, and because there's no digital data, that 3 reformer stops. Well, that's fine on a map. Working through those challenges was a key part of the project. All had to go around square unit pieces, and how those. This then shows you pilot. Make the site. You can download. There are other. I'll give you the address at the end, available on that site for anyone who's interested. Sadly, they're all in Spanish for those who want. So sadly, for those who don't speak Spanish, that is.
Thanks a lot, Phil, and thanks everybody for several small exercises to improve the quality of life of this. Part of the small exercise, we develop also projects like within the marginalized neighborhood. This is the night bus. 1 year ago, we developed this project with the go outside on the streets. You could see the bus stops. It's just advertising publicity. What we are trying to change the conversation is to the night bus is awesome. I mean, you get to the airport, you get to. So this is the first corridor with safe on the streets. Could bear and knowing that she could just walk to the bus stop and knows that the bus is coming and go to the. You can transfer. You can pay if we pay like of the safe, and we are also trying to transportation. Beautiful. So we have like
employees.
Kind of modern
workshop. We have to come clear for. You could see the first. Well, we have to use.
The main axis of this conference cycle is to emphasize Mexico City and the efforts that are being made linked to 60% of the households, 5% of the drinking water is washing or buying bottled water and jugs. Paradoxically, less people. This is the water separate the first sediments formed by the dust in the water that drains from the to prevent them from reaching the reservoir. That may or may not conduct the water. In the last 2 years of the Ministry of Social Development and the Undersecretary of Citizen Participation. So this is the number that has been installed. Rainwater harvesting system have thrown or perceived due to misuse. And only 60% of the users who still use their system explore is what has been the technological adoption of this rainwater harvest. To answer these questions, systems in participating communities of 2016 to communication communities of Mexico, and the 5 attributes of innovation and of knowledge when users hear about rain to give decision. When the innovation stage is given team having used the technology decides to continue. This is the variation stage. Variation stage are want to know if in the confirmation. As for the impression of technology, of the technology, user experience, and the usability. The research process of information, making a strategy to get to know the users and system, it will be possible and to separator to make it work, member and perform maintenance tasks. Also that
20 minutes is enough, so please be back in 20 minutes. Let's go for a group photo, please, now.
we make jokes about
Hello. Talk about take it away. We wanted to understand and recycle because for sustainability. Our question was it has been separated. Here everything was perfect. Architecture. As a way to visualize 16 municipalities in which the city is divided are other sources of the transferencia in other states. This to the same the number of trucks disposed for here. The last ones are Cuajimalpa. Enough. We must reduce the amount of packages we generate. In every city I visit. Thank you.
Any questions, comments? And some figures about
Plastic like PET. Because if you bags to see the question.
But it's a beautiful diagram.
Yes.
So
It's a bad news because we thought it would be a huge amount that has been recycled, and it's only 182 tons per day recycled. So with the almost 8,000 tons per day. So it's a huge difference.
which is good. Okay.
Natalia, a question about the results of this diagram. Are you spread in some way to share?
We reject that project and into other states near Mexico City. In some other countries, the government charge you
Interesting. So
municipality are the amount of money they expend on and how many routes are of trucks and
Well, yes. Hi everyone, my name is from 10 to 14 years old in Mexico lies and take decisions in the different this talk can be useful for this way I divide my highlights into principal section. One, the decision taken through the lens of information data protection and privacy topics with virtuality, social networks, possibilities of access information, knowledge, and new ways of recreation. We travel, see movies, to do exercise, listen music, work with apps and websites that make our life easier. That is very, very valuable for companies that for companies limits in the way that they use our information is opacity and data. An ecosystem is developing where surveillance is done by default and the exploitation. The digital transformation has been so distinct that we have not society as citizens and as individuals to carry. New ways has had to redirect this scope of protection to reject invasions to its private sphere, like in 19 to the recognition of the right to control to access to its information, especially in a context where sharing our information is a word. Well, keeping in mind this situation, a year ago, collaboration with Creative Commons Guatemala, translate with tips to use internet in a more user. The key for complete population and purpose. And the guide will have met major financial investment and human resources for distribution. In the first stage, the game focuses on two principal objectives. Demonstrate the difference between a secure password with the Queen of Locks and become aware of the importance of detecting safe website, fighting with the perfect web. That complements their design, develop this in the planning and conceptualization of the game. That's present from the moment, from the beginning. Evaluation, we saw that the first decision to navigate into the platform is not by scrolling. The first decision was to a personal user interface. For this reason, informal alone design in mind, we choose sources that we can count on. This way, we know their own language, ecosystem. The concept satisfies their philosophy of sharing. We talk about 15 kids in primary school. I think, or you may only have, in fact, you don't understand. First,
to the efficiency of.
The guys in office in Los Angeles.
Okay, thank you.
Community which fills up a city with life. So this St. Pölten lebt, which means translated, St. Pölten is alive. I tell you a story about possibilities, about people, about also about how we can tell you how ginger can affect the way we be excited. So, as I started my work, I started to dig deep in the ground to find the root. I spoke to people, I made a lot of interviews, and after weeks and weeks of digging, I information to harvest the fruits of my formed design concept for the application of St. Pölten. As I mentioned before, my hometown St. Pölten will apply for the European. St. Pölten would be the third Austrian city which will receive this honor. European Capital of Culture, a year-long prestigious event which celebrates the richness and diversity of, for a city, being the European cultural, social benefits, and also change the perception on a local and international scale. So what about St. and it's the capital of a region called Lower Austria, which is in North. I assume you all know that. So St. Pölten is divided into 11 districts and is a city surroundings, and a rectangular shape. So that's one is declared as forest or and the city area. So here, like I said, the city doesn't know if it's too rural to be a city or too urban to be a town. Main characteristic is St. Pölten's identity as an industrial city. Because the 40 years the population of St. Pölten tripled. So evening, besides a few bars and restaurants, like today, it's more and more connected, and you really have to know which way you want to go. Concepts in the last few years. St. Pölten, the fittest city. I have it now. It's the identification with the city. It's hard for the people that really don't know what's so special about it. Identification, and also this missing clear the people who live there. Passion and want to change the city. There was the public was responsible application, yes, application, no, yes, and force include. That showed that more than 80% of the people in St. Pölten want life, want entertainment and arts happening in the streets. So how can you bring a a city to life. The city provides a space to live in. The city and the organism are in constant open systems. But why is this relevant for a city? A city into a living being. So could we turn the city into a rhizome? Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari in the 70s of the latest century. There's no beginning and no end. So ginger, for instance, as the famous example for a rhizome, a central trunk coming up and branches established out. There are many things that are connected with each other. Hierarchy and about linear structure. The rhizome is about connect. So think with the rhizome, Pelton and with the European capital of culture. To answer this call, the network is divided into the plateau is an area which provides, and that can be anything, that can be a patio, a place. The rise is changing, so it can form new routes and plateaus during the year. The inhabitants, there are different ways how the rhizome is how the rhizome communicates with the spectator. At first, they follow the red line, and in the rhizome is the constant movement and the process. So it's important that the people move forward. But there's also the spectator experience if you follow the red line. Sure, but it would. For example, on critical, why can we, and to really through art of my presentation, I want to event. If you start to think of rhizome, you can see the rhizome everywhere. Even here and today, we share our study field from different cultures. What the rhizome is the idea that everything within a space, everything related to another, can be and must be connected.
Okay.
To tell your story.
It's available for every, and that was the relay.
Given to second layer.
On the north, one in the south. The authority with the
to connect connections to rhizome, fixed.
That there are never really activation of the rhizome, and one there was also will be different.
Maybe the network by themselves.
Process.
The project with many connections.
Hello? Okay, we will not take up a lot of time because everybody wants to have lunch. But just to introduce Far North, and I'm an Elise, and this is Christy.
Hi. Hello. So I'm Christy Campos. I'm an undergraduate in the VCD program at the University of Alberta. I'm also a practicing designer. And I have a prior background working in geomatics, so I used to make maps for 4 years before I went in the intersection between design, data.
We're talking specifically about the map today, GIS and information design, using data that we think promotes safe city spaces and enhances the place. Two core necessities of map design and wayfinding today. As a little bit of an outline, we'll go through our research objectives, method.
So we're also known as the gateway to the north, and what that means is it's just imagine driving down the highway on black ice and that's my drive to school or work. So some background is this in Jasper. Is the largest urban green belt in North America, so it has 106 ways and 20 major project parks within the urban, within the river valley of urban parks city. So Edmonton, we are the leader, the Canadian, so we've actually won Canada's award for the most open city in 2017. And so there are thousands of data sets that are available online, that can be downloaded by interdisciplinary groups such as GIS analysts, but also designers alike. The project was online on open data and uploaded them into GIS and then used design platforms to create an app that fosters more exploration and use of our river valley. So if you visit Edmonton right now, what you'll find is online you'll find like crude PDFs of the trail systems in the river valley. They really, and so people, we think that open data can really
parks. We had to, parks were safe to visit for years. There's a network of ski trails that has been designed and is used by this club, which you'll see in a moment. This idea of the sequence of experience, and I love that term, increase visitors, enhance the experience of the space, and we know that good wayfinding and map design can really do that. So working with the signage into the valley, we worked with, research included, recreational interests, but the image of that park is to recognize there's that people pattern their surroundings, and as designers we can be information to help that emotional attachment to these. This idea of patterning is interesting because it helps the user to interpret information that we give them and then guide them action, and help them to decide whether or not they're actually going to use the parks and the human needs that people have. People need to relax, to unwind and escape people don't access it because it is deemed to be sort of hard to get to and even unsafe. And actually, we have very limited light in the winter.
We conducted a survey and we had an overwhelming response. It was an online survey. We had 220 response. 88% of those people were living in Edmonton. And what we got from that survey was that there is a lot of love and pride for our river valley, used parks. So there's actually only 2 or 3 parks that people really go to out of the 22 in the urban, the reason for that is because there's actually huge festivals in those parks. And so once people visit it the one time, they'll keep going back. So very similar to what Julian was talking about patterning your environment and how people will visit those spaces that they know. So a project such as the one we worked on is just trying to get people out there and trying to get them exploring the river valley and just understanding that you don't have to drive 5 hours to the mountains to really enjoy nature. Like, it's right there in the city.
There are 3 types of the design of our map. Map system. Planimetric is the first. These are relative, however, they have a high degree of accuracy to depict trail and feature placement. So the second one is profile maps, which tend to be simple and a simpler the field. And the third is the panoramic map, which is typically the type of mapping that you see at...
Enrich the information. So the kind of information they wanted to see, they wanted bridges and intersection points, restrooms, building footprints, training areas, just typical. So yeah, initial design decisions included ways to reduce visual clutter, that we would use a survey map, so an overall map of the area to replace the existing one that they had in the ski pavilion. Did very efficiently and trying to speak the language of mapping, trying to speak the language of GPS. We actually broke down all the Garmin technology and just going out there finding point data, finding line data and polygon data. So we really wanted to, but also speaking both the languages. We kind of knew the things that the formats that we can then use. And so this is when we take, the transfer happens from the GIS analysts to us as designers.
They were old and needed to be updated from the 60s and not representative of the area was updated. And in terms of the information density, everything was on really no connection here to the housing or in addition, there's no emergency features or connection to how you would leave or get out if you were in the park and had a problem. The other thing we found in talking to people and the stakeholders with a space that's what they have. Obviously a screen capture and some drawing over top. So part of our job was to really sift through the density of information and to make it clear for people using it. In the design of the large map, trail names in the North American trail maps, whereas green is the symbols. In a standardized system, we used thicknesses that were equal to create a system of visual hierarchy in the trails. Roads and streets are labeled to increase the accessibility to labeled, and there's a training grid also that is mentioned.
We were also able to add contour line data, so we could show more elevation information of GPS analyst and just tell her to line out with the GPS unit. And so that's something that was really great as well. And also in terms of safety, we were able to get light post locations map as well.
Some user feedback. We did an initial survey where there was about where that was positive and a great improvement over the existing map. We gave people several search tasks, but actually we'll go out into the space in the next month or so, hopefully when we get some snow, to how people are able to use the map. And part of the next to break in the trails. So I know we just have a few minutes left. I'm going to skip into the values and challenges of this type of work. I think for designers, it's another language, and it's numerical literacy over just visual literacy, which we're already familiar with. Rapid prototyping and iterative working methods without having to and the handoff of the data, but on the benefits of working together, then also mobilization of that knowledge. So again, benefits of working together. We had a multidisciplinary team that we worked with. So we worked with civic teams like the City of Edmonton, diagramming to project and understand the possible outcome of some unusual connections we found with the GIS technology, which may not have been connected before, and I guess and enable user testing as part of the process. So I think overall it helped to have this multidisciplinary team where we didn't necessarily know anything about how we worked.
It's becoming more and more accessible through accurate GPS technology in your phone. There's also plenty of online cloud-based Google Earth that are really effective.
Please comment more about it.
And we'll test to do some basically search tests because it's in the valley. It's a really good question. I always find myself figure out what the like while relatively seamless the benefit.
To get across as well as maybe like considering that information could have that see what's available.
Getting data back.
That's something that creates more value for other people moving.
Really trying to find the city of this data.
The final question, which is the difference between data that's been authoritative data, which is what we have in the open data portal, data that's collected by city areas, and then they've got a process whereby they sign that off. So you don't walk over the bridge to get down. Is that by the university?
And neighborhoods. So it's really, you drive in,
yeah, exactly.
And people don't know if there's light there, right? Like they're like, are they going to get dark at night? But it is like.
Are these all maintained paths? Or?
Yeah, they are.
And they're maintained through the entire year.
Well, there's snow in the winter. Yeah, in their winter the group. Yeah.
The user group is just as niche.
Yeah.
People that
which is even cooler because they can sign this stuff off really quickly, right?
Yeah.
But it's just like, I don't know, like it's nice to help them in that way, right? Because you can see that they have this passion. Like they want people to visit. Like they,
absolutely.
It's just so,
Parks and Trails people are great.
They are.
They're kind of out there, aren't they?
They're totally out
I mean, you see the program like Parks and Rec. It's bang on, but they're great, and they are really passionate. They really want to do something. When you're on together on the screen, that'd be great. We should have a chat.
Yeah. The app that I was working on, like I had that at my grad show, and it was funny. Someone came up to me and they were like, please tell me this is like real. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, it's just a user interface. I'm so sorry.
We're developing a digital strategy for them. Yeah. It's actually a digital mapping strategy to say, like you said, it's really bureaucratic. What we want to understand is how can they share this data? How can they make it easy to share this data? And in what ways would they want to share it to achieve their objectives? Because you can share it in any way of having a formal licensing and kind of charging and monetizing it. You've got the data, you want people to use it, because the more people who use the same data, the more consistency you get in the various products that are out there. So we're just starting to look at that just now for the city, how they can achieve a digital platform, which the city can, much more cheaply, and they can generate revenues from it, and they can do whatever they, you know, they can do what they want, but how do you do that in a way that achieves the city's objectives as well, kind of third-party partnership arrangements and so on. And Google Street Labs are interesting for that. So we got Google are kicking Google out. We've just done one Valley Metro, and they're finding now they don't know how much it's going to cost them because Google's charges are going. Okay, if you're under 5,000 a month, you're okay. You can, because of new licensing arrangement, they give you the value of roughly 5,000 hits US a month. But it fluctuates, doesn't it?
Exactly, and that's when people want to use it.
Yeah, because you need it. Anyway, really interesting project. Great to see it.
I was wondering about your team. Like, we love your project, and like, you work with design and GIS.
So we've got a GIS team. So Aurora did all the GIS analysis.
I just don't see that a lot. Like, it's really cool.
Yeah, but we thought that was people don't understand it, and you transfer the data.
Like, there's little steps that it's
data. Import it into Illustrator. We set We set that up in Illustrator and GIS data, and you keep it to your reference, so you won't bring new data in the future. It just keeps.
Sorry, that's like
it's not cheap. It's not cheap, but it's not prohibitively expensive. And how do you think? It's just a plug-in to Illustrator. It's an Illustrator plug-in.
That's all. Remember
and so it's user.
This was like just, we had to clean it up. We have to turn all the symbols.
So it does some of that. Yeah. Hello. Sorry. That's okay. We should speak.
Like,
yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Entonces podemos hablar sobre la presentación y puede explicar todo eso. Sí, vale. Déjame comer eso, por favor.
Sí.
Tengo ya hambre.
You were nervous. That's after I was nervous. Well, this is.
What about the app? Because, I expected also after they will show something about that.
We will, but because I think app is a part of that is building it out.
I can put the link to the app that I showed you just for people on the slides, because I have a video, I have an actual video that walks through the extension of the project. It needs an app. Yeah, that is. Thank you. Oh, jeez. And that's only a natural extension, because who uses paper maps anymore? Yeah, it has to be applied to the app. It's okay. Thank you.
Gracias por venir acá. Since you had many fun with Nachabus.
To engage with the local public and to do projects, we're going to how the city works. So they were partly responsible for Vision Zero being adopted, and I've got a meeting with Gabriella data from various sources in order to validate. And so I know some people in the UK who can help them do this. So I'm having a chat with them tomorrow about that. So that's the kind of projects you do, or the funding agency for launching this project. And it wasn't. When we did the design piece, it was probably $25,000. No, it's not. It was a fun project.
Yeah. So then what was the time frame for the
probably about 60 or 70 information. So Emily, one of the girls in London, duck it up, says, hold on here, see, I've got, why don't you look at these sorts of things? Looks actually very similar to what we ended up with. And we sent those things to the lab as part of our final report and said, this is just kind of some suggestions of what you might want to do. And they loved it, and the client loved it.
So the deliverable within the beginning was a
Wasn't
report?
that? No, so I just delivered, I thought,
oh wow,
we should do this. This is going to be too cool to miss out on.
That's amazing.
And you guys can do the promotion, you can do the technical. You're not information designer.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll do this.
Yeah.
For a kind of,
Yeah.
and
cool.
and that's what we do. We'll give you all the templates, and we'll train you on how to use Map Publisher, how to use. Well, and that's what we did. So we just delivered a suite of templates and trained them, and then off they went and did it. So they got some designers in house, so they know how to use the software, they use the tools and so on, but they weren't really equipped to do the technical work that they need to get these sorts of wayfinding pieces. All the kind of geeky shit that we do. That I didn't talk about. So that's what we did. And it was mainly just one, just the really Emily, a little bit of Manny. A cartographer in London, a trained cartographer, who's also a GIS. Sessions, sent them off to do some stuff. Said, come back in a month. And let me look at it. Something we don't understand. And we have to be sessions like that. Like, where there is a
Indoor spaces or indoor, or is it all exterior, outdoor?
GIS rooms. So we'll do space insight site, GIS analytics of space. We, for Toronto, we're doing that as well. No, the underground. So we've developed a new wayfinding system for that. Wow. So what we've done is translate the cities. We're also doing the cities wayfinding project. We've translated the city, different colour palettes, different stylings. It's all toned down. And there's also digital track. We've been speaking with kind of indoor navigation tech providers about navigation in a way that's unintrusive, because the city doesn't own the physical the walls. To stick something on it, you need to get their bloody permission. So Bluetooth beacons, you can pretty much blue tag on these walls. It's a way to have a connected environment, because Wi-Fi is that's a luxury. So we're also speaking with TTC about, because TTC are kind of joined with subway stations.
Inside this path, you have different owners of the wall.
So the path that
or just one owner.
Okay, so the path sits. So what the path is. So you'll have cars, on all the streets. Buildings on the building footprint. And then you've got a bit that joins together, and the city own that bit. So the city own the non-spaces, and the buildings own the spaces. And so in order to get anything through, you need to
close off their doors.
And in some cases, exactly. So in some cases, not very many in Toronto, luckily, but in some cases, the lower ground floor of what's effectively a retail store. So you've got Saks, and you go through the lower ground floor of Saks to get to the subway station. And another reason why digital is mapping for Toronto, people never knew when the feeds, where they were.
special industries.
Ya van a empezar, tigre.
Please. Thank you, Martin. Thank you. My name is Enrico Bravi. I'm Italian, but I live in Austria already since many years. And I teach in St. Pölten, so we hear again about this rather small city in Austria. And thanks to Lisa, I don't have to explain. Thanks, Lisa, again for the great talk. And it's also nice, so on top of your Vienna, cities by numbers, rediscovering the Winklers and systems. A couple of words that I for information design archaeology. We are
ask people.
By switching big from one to an Italian lullaby. You don't understand as a child and even as a grown-up, and I'm actually not that far. I still don't know what. But this house has no ceiling. It's placed. This is my address. So I live in Austria, in Vienna. I live in the 14th district, which is actually the two numbers you can see in the middle of 1140. So this is telling in which district I'm living. This is more or less like a street number. Leave that flat for another. Vienna nowadays, and as I mentioned before, I have been quite often in the last 15 years, and I've been living in and working in actually 10 of them. My aim is not to complete the list, but somehow at a certain point you try somehow to find the reason, the numbers of the 23 districts as they are nowadays. Before switching on the structure of the city in a diagram, in congruence with the number 10, but this is an historical development of the city. So to where the cow plays board games. Difficult to figure out. Probably it's based on a fairy tale, but it's pretty all our examples. And the typeface is called bold and nice rounded set with this white line. And the type, if we move the eye, will immediately another typeface. It's definitely another when wishing to seek the sign of an house or a vendor shop in around the city. Also find it. So basically, back then was horrible. You could actually 80 signboards of eagles, 60 signs bearing trees, 30 showing bears, and pretty funny also to analyze those 87 white ones, 29 gold ones, and 33 black eagles. So basically finding a black eagle's house in Vienna at that time, this is, and to tell you what those numbers are, I want you to, because not much about funding a house, but of course some topic. Especially if we try to understand which kind of connection we have now. You had the same house issue, the list of all the houses. The main problem was that system was basically thought there are lots of in sequence according to place. So there is nothing more so to say, democratic than house numbers. They are all the same. Everybody has got one, or maybe not, but it's back in the days. They had this kind of numbers to be distinguished from the other people. So there is some shadows also on those very 5,562 of the same, or in the other direction in a completely different system, so-called a block system in Washington DC, and basically in all those cities that has a strict structure in the city planning, the structure of the old city in Mannheim. In Berlin, we have the so-called horseshoes numbering. Depending on the side of the street, we one way the street, and then you go back one. And the situation in Berlin, they both have switching system. Florida, I will explain. But on top of that, we also have this 1860s is actually the moment I really want to focus in the history of Vienna. At that moment, basically started growing and moved from 1 to 9 districts. The so-called many years later in Vienna. The guy behind the system, and you already heard his last name, Michael Winkler, a technique to districts around them, and he developed also the notion of the. This is so this is a further end, and we would basically have these two shapes. Because in the first district, of course, you cannot distinguish between concentric and radial streets, you would just use these two situations. In the other districts, and here I take the number 3, the third district, and radial street. So what we to the concentric street, that idea also in the shape used for the street names and for the color variation. So in the first district, for the houses in this constellation, so we have numbers a couple of years ago, but it's for me such an old system somehow still works. It's still there, and so the 6th, blue for the 7th. I heard Martin is the 8th, and the last. I wasn't satisfied. I started really because I knew that I was going to need was going to be a lot. I took the 6th, which I had yet numbers that are coexisting next to the system that we already saw in blue. Many of them, if you don't look carefully, because you keep looking for the blue ones, there are not so many of the big one left. So carrying most of the identity. The maps of the city kept using those colors. This was the time when the blue system that I showed at the beginning used. They didn't, they of course left all the colors away. It was too expensive. There was also no possibility to actually, I mean, for an information designer nowadays, this is a thing, but I mean, think back in 1860 idea, especially the one connected to the shape. And luckily enough, this was kept. At least for a couple of years, the blue signs were rounded and straight, keeping somehow the 644. The system is the one I was the 8. There is a norm. There is the typeface I was already shortly talking about, and this is how street. And actually, even order one if you really want one. This one situation was for me somehow a little that combination of the cities that. Can recognize so quickly. Really interesting project that was started in Vienna a few years ago, called 10% of them were neutral, 42% were actually names of women. Also that one, but I want to finish, started getting interested in the Winkler system to have a number. It is really part of the identity. They were interested for that, so telling a lot of who we are, or at least about.
This is one found out. Yes, we. I would. And of course, cathedral is it really because so it really could spread in this in walking. You have to understand not the digital one, but one with 12 numbers.
1860. But I would be now.
And actually, my talk is going
person I met of Viennese, and they there.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Second largest city of Austria.
Yeah. Yeah, hello, my name is Eberhard. Mexico City. It's the roof of the UNESCO. So you see all the cities with a flag, and that's currently. And Graz is right there where the blue ring is. So take always this view of the world where we are in the center. We saw other sites from the Europe point of view. You see in the American continent, Detroit, Montreal, and in the South American continent, that's Brazil. Since 2011, and we doing Graz is we're working to close the gap between how we do it, how we try to close or bridge this gap, I would say. They are really into that. So fourth, why is the next and raise these transform companies, especially when they go on a global here with different, it's like you might really like Tinder, but they creative people with in the internationalization. Then for capitals in the year 2000, a European year, we start the people and this year in the cultural capital year is more or less a firework of events, you know, and this is the creative industries or distribution, and which now almost 60 companies planned is that you have a tour, a guide in this, and the creative people, and we are from the creative industries. Let's okay.
Experience economy, creative train value can be experienced beyond products. The appreciation for local production companies.
Now about there are about 60 companies in there. It's a great door open relationship, especially to create from non-believers to believers in the creative, to believers in the creative processes and design. They're still non-believers, very much of it. We want them to see and learn what creativity and design can really do for them if they do it on time. And this program to convince kitchen trend goals. So some of them direct marketers where you is there, and as I know, these companies, they have their open day or open doors day and things like this. But I think this is the program. And not because I created, because from the creativist point of view, is it subsidized by 50% from the state. So the content, if you wayfinding systems and all these things, or the tour guide for showing processes is the monitor where the content makes a really creative people. And that's important. And if we want, it's about the month of design, so to get more disciplines are in of what this is a really nice picture, or very fast to us. It's always in and things in public space, promote
neighborhood development in Brazil.
Hi, Diogo. We can hear you, Vivian.
Presentation.
I can hear you.
This is my background.
Sorry, before you fine. Hear you fine.
Not listening. Operation, kind of segmentation, search and design. Search your country. Science, never science, being I named in practice. I was a kind of in my lab design, factory experience in a program that science research had a dialogue between so as good so real world. Happening strategy says they can pass. It's about design implemented at design is constructed in information science and this world of that we use and the use was more to provide the knowledge that you were remain dream world around the same as we do with more science on it. So interesting. I read because I starting to see some results. I hope this paper has information design, subjects, and projects. In this idea, this are my doing of the project. And that the next student to why the research so far about another steps that been on the prototype, and the semester we will end. This one have shooter is a great series by OT. Where you have shooters, so the spring that you have some now I think or
You don't trust Carl, huh? You don't trust Carl.
No.
No, it's just a note, so it's your time.
My name is David Gibson, and I'm a designer at a company called 212. We're based in New York City and in Honolulu in Hawaii. And I'm propagation. And this is the first stops there. I realized for once, but Yelp has really given a choice, the right thing in the right place. Something like Eventbrite, which we use a lot in the United States, to Facebook, really great one to help you with Tinder and many others. I think they're amazing. All the Uber guys get around. We don't think at me. There's no road here as they drive in blindly. So, it's not foolproof. You have to be thinking as you're doing it. So the first thing is talk earlier because it's just sort of look at a few examples of ways that we can, and this is somewhat what I do in wayfinding, and this is a hospital that I've been working on in finding a city is the left bank and the right bank. One on the left and the other is the right. And so the left bank is the part of, and the right bank was the seat of power. Left bank or the right bank to explore Paris. Now, rather small, which are the neighborhoods, and each of them has a separate character. That's a way, sort of thinking of, and it has a kind of highway network. A number of studies, we sort of do connections between the city streets and the highways, so we called them uptown. I'm worried that it was sort of artificial, but people love this map, and it's now been adopted in a lot. Are you up by the mountains, or are you down by the Mackay side? And in the Honolulu area, extinct volcano, and then Ua Beach on the other side. Honolulu is, are you on the Mauka side of the street or the Mackay and Diamond Head? So these are kind of landmarks. And when we designed, find the sides, the platforms of the John's Pizza place, because I had an appointment nearby. Really get the about the fact that the palace complex, which is also from the 15th century, plan of the city. So I was sort of looking at guidebooks and understanding the old imperial, the forbidden city, which is part of the imperial city. There's the inner city and the outer city and these various gates. And I suddenly thought, oh, that's actually, if you sort of impose, I suddenly always felt more comfortable where I was. So there's a series of highways that go around Beijing, and these are the ring roads, and those sort of started from that traditional core and have now, the line runs along that old sort of the Tiananmen Square, and number 2 is part of the definition of the old city border. They're inner and to that old, and these are modern city districts that sort of come from that old wall. And so it all kind of comes together. And so when in the plane, some of the features, but for me, all those details add to the richness of understanding the place. And if you look at Vienna in the same way, the ring is from where the old city fortification. If you think about New York City, one mechanism I have, and multi-religious society, and right near my huge mosque, next to a very large, I think maybe slightly taller Christian church, there's been a bit of ring about the history and the culture and the problems, and is just developing addresses around. And in American cities like New York, in a neighborhood called Dumbo, in just another kind of application of that. This is Fifth in Manhattan, in the middle of New York City. I'm going to orient myself, but it's overwhelming coming down on the road. You kind of, the smell of pizza morphs in an American, pull it up on it, where she's been doing a smell map of New York, and she's kind of, you know, we can think of smell as reminds you that you're in a Muslim country. And I remember the first time I heard it, it was quite arresting. I think the picture on the right is in transit, or the seagulls and the waves tell you by the water. So again, help us think about the parts of the city and where we might want to go, and navigating. Oh, and is the person who was asking not 100% blind. He and I eat dinner quite often, and then we just walk around the corner. And so I think of myself as kind of an international navigation expert. So one night we'd had a really great, we were chatting and we're walking down the street, and for some reason I thought, God damn it, how do you know that? And so he uses, but on his street, interesting, they say this is in Soho, and interesting things. They're great to use tactile strips to help people. Back to Rio, the kind of time, and so even the subtle differences in feeling tell you you're in a different majestic waterfront. And just a couple of the lion of that if you kiss the lion, it'll give you luck, and you'll. Most memorable moment. I was first in Rome in the 19th. Powerful idea, and there they are doing it, and it's real. I'm just about done. Oh, okay. That you have in your human body to help you to too far. We have human interactions and all kinds of it. For we look at think even of a more holistic approach where we include all the media. So, with that in mind, maybe. So that's. But I think you know. Its own city, I think that's much easier. But I mean, I think you know the more as
situation, and we are a different city. The travel guide. If we don't period of something and not only the gate have a renaissance. Or an understanding. So that's, and to make sure it's getting in. So the question is, can we put it? You also know, I think, the light too late.
One is how deep do you understand that? I mean,
we just come back from Fez in Marrakesh. So that shop, I had a natural and
Hello there.
You are in.
as we...
The one with more touches given to the people. Here in the city we live because of the government policies. The last government used to build, densify the city, and more people are coming because we have a centralized country. They had problems of corruption, and they're, instead of building places for them, will lead just to what happened with the people. When you got a home, is because they're at least for a year, and you have to live there for 20 years if you got a with your family, and when you raise your kids and you plan your life, and it's such an important decision. You have to make it based on the give you. This leads you to us to base data decisions, where the next question is where you can find data for this Free and Information Institute, the laboratory for exploring the habitability of the city by themes of mobility, commerce, and other topics that could leave us is translated as properties.com. And we have a large inventory about apartment homes and rooms, and also not living places. Like data is the users that by themselves, they are looked to be good for them, and this data can give us information about the offer and the demand of some zones. So the okay, and this is the talk about this process in a day-to-day work in .com. And well, and in real estate industry we have an ecosystem that is made by the people who are construction. Three main users, people who is looking for a place to live is know little about the don't use technology. With the UX team we make users persona to identify this kind of person, so they have to make business to have a between them a lot about the topic and the use of technology, and their motivation is to the things. They don't say this is a cheap price, this is a good zone, or another. For example, if a broker already exists from the website or from the users. So use section. It gives you the quality of Benito Juarez, and you guys, but this is not enough because prices, so fix or chips of information, a lot of graphics, so they can have know very quickly how about the there are people who cannot pay their mortgage and they put to sell their house fraud. And in the side we about make ideas, so these images are to make business, and are about the trending topic that a paper one, so they can have it in their. The next step in is less process is prototyping and planning. But here we have the problem of following the approach. Planning is hard when you have an editorial line. If you are losing the freshness of a new, you don't have plan to the computer to go. When you prototype with side by side with a lot of things of the product, it is bull. When you involve yours, they give very part of the team. They don't feel that they are just crafting things. And this is an interdisciplinary form of work. Development and testing is the hardest things to do when you work in like for yesterday, and they don't believe very much in testing the product before developing it. For example, for doing the product, we have an editorial meeting, and at the same time the data miner and the copywriter are working. They also give the information to the data analyst and process each other, and it's very, it's harder discipline. And we have a very site and give it to the data analyst as the last. Also, if there is beside the, but we have letting them know reports. That's.
Any question, Nora, please?
Are certain age, so you can say
in propiedad, a late funds of many brokers who product.
But no, because I see that.
Broker,
I believe the last presentation. I'm going to talk about transparency and infrastructure data. And well, as we know, it's a known fact that our society is changing to kind of people. So this and the way in that every project city on the left side, sorry. This is just one part of the city, which is called Nesa. The whole city in Google Earth, it looks amazingly crowded. Even in the, okay, now we can see it, has grown about from having 384 cities, 101 cities with more than 50 inhabitants. And the city, it's growing in physical expansion, concentration of urban furniture, and growing urban population. Really fast urban projects we needed. Now I would like several industries. One that I do every year is infrastructure. One of my favorites. This one, I'm going to jump to, it's about mobility, and it talks about, this is the comparisons of the car and the bicycle. Years ago, I have been living here for 13 years, and when I arrived, the bicycle was those 13 years when we have we have this system of renting bicycles. It has been growing really fast. 30 million. These numbers are for last year's, for our book of last. The metro and the metrobus, which are the most famous means of transportation in Mexico. The oldest one is the metro. And our infographics talks to the kind of people, but we are focusing more in, this is the forma, which is the street in Mexico City. And before this infographic, I remember that the population that it's involved, which are the ends of this presentation we released in the 14th of November. And just some important points, which is the investment about these kind of things to the people who are decision makers and who are investing in all this project itself, to the change and transition that we are having. This was seen to make an airport and the new one. And no many of them were comparing the current airport to the new one. And this was only investors and big companies will say they only see where is it going to be constructed, developed, and we need to compare from what we have that is not enough to what we need. Then the next investors, this is quite small, I'm sorry, in the part of the website, of course in the new airport, choose to select and put it in our book. This was part of our I think much of this information is going to be in which time, to know how much, and so we can also be part of the kind of decision. I think that, and who are you talking to, and to mention the means in which the means that the purpose of the conversation. People is that they close the street, or all the mess that you do when you are an infrastructure project, but this is its parents also, at least for our the kind of people that we talk, which is CEOs, transparency.
Can you put again the map of
the information? I mean, to have the infographic itself like printed. You have to buy the book or go to one of our events.
Sorry, just for us, there was a
consult about the airport. Cancelled yesterday. So this airport has struck the
decision in our president. We will change the president next year. People choose another kind of restricted. I don't think that's bad. I just think that's a different way to work. And the new airport is meant to be a project that has, I think it has a long time. I think it has 12 years of planification since they're starting to make the lances to the people. So not only decision makers are going to be the companies that are involved, but the people has to choose what they want. And in this project, 3 options that it was, I think, no, 2 options. Yeah, 2 options, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That it was to make this airport and the new airport, it might be cancelled. Right now, I mean, they already said that it is going to be cancelled, but
we don't know
we don't know. It's not official. Yeah, it's not.
Could well cost them almost the equivalent.
Realize about any decision related to the construction or the cancellation of the airport.
I think that's a really interesting point, and shared a more.
He was just saying. Then what is the objective? Was it just an exercise? What is the meaning of having this and not putting to work?
Actually, this infographic is we worked in 2015, available from 2015.
Online for all of us?
Yes.
Okay.
Our books are online. Yeah, you can search as Mexico Infrastructure Review. And it has been to check it, What we did this year is to make an update on it.